Welcome to an up. Blah. Welcome to another episode of Inquiring Minds. I am Steve Harper. With me, as always, is my amazing co-host Donna Carlin. Donna, how are you doing today?
I'm great, thank you. Now that all my technological issues are fixed and we could actually have this call, I'm much better, thank you.
Yeah, well, good. Well, I mean, those things are just those are small obstacles to just see how committed you are to getting on this and continuing to record. So, see, your commitment level is unquestionable.
Thank you so much. Very kind of you.
Well, yeah, and I just know that the every time you run into a some sort of technical roadblock, you get to upgrade technology, which I think is always a great thing. So,
That's it, yeah.
yeah. Well, so what are we talking about today?
So I read a quote by Stephen Bartlett, who I really think very highly of, by the way, who said, "Life taught me that the things you want to do, but you're scared to do, is what you must do." And then added that everything that I'm most proud of started with fear and ended with happiness.
Oh, oh,
And I just love that quote. So I wanted to discuss it with you
yeah,
because we are afraid of so many things. So we sort of ignore that we want to do them or sidestep it or maybe dip a toe in and then say, no, 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 why rock the boat kind of thing.
yeah,
And I'm just wondering how many people who are listening to us really have lived that and how we could discuss with each other ways of diving into the deep end, even when we're scared to death to do it. Because ultimately, even if we're not successful, the fact that we did it, we could be so proud of.
yeah. That we took the chance, right? That we were willing,
Exactly.
we were scared about it, but we went forward anyway.
Yeah. So I'd love to hear, some of what you've experienced in how did you just say, oh, let's just go for it? What was it that you did?
Well, as we've established in prior episodes, I'm not a smart man. I just go forward anyway.
That's a double
Uh,
hockey puck throw,
yeah,
mister.
yeah, double hockey puck to the head. Yes. No, I think a lot of times, um, I would say for me, a lot of youth and inexperience probably allowed me to overcome a lot of fear. And then it's interesting, the more professional success, and I'm speaking in a professional capacity now, but if you think about it, the more success you have or the more that you gain, the more that you get a little bit more concerned about losing. And so I think fear tends to ratchet up the older we get a little bit, especially in our professional careers and our the direction we take with our sort of our career paths. And so I think we become a little bit more um, afraid to take those chances and to jump off and do things that we might have otherwise not really given too much thought for and just tried, at least in my experience. And so I find that it's unfortunately fear becomes sort of the destructive mistress because it really prevents me from taking the chances that I really should be taking. And although the quote really does, yeah, make sense when we're talking about it here, in the moment, it's like, oh, I don't know that thing. I might lose this, or it might cause conflict, or it might, create, an uncertain situation. And it's interesting how quickly we lose our nerve, because we're not willing to take those chances, which is exactly why you brought this up, which is the, counter opposite to what we should be telling people. Like, you should be taking those chances. You'll be proud of yourself for doing it, for trying it, and having the experience, whether it's successful or not. But I think that there's a lot of trepidation in that, especially as the older I get, at least personally.
It's really interesting. I was going to add something about that. That's another layer because I witness how people shrink their comfort zone as they get older. So I'll give you like an example that has nothing to do with business, but it gives a really good illustration of what we're talking about. Because, when you're a kid, a
Yeah,
teenager, and a friend of yours has a pair of jeans that you just want those exact jeans, and you will travel by 15 buses to get to the other end of nowhere to pick up that pair of jeans because they only sell them in that one store.
Yeah.
And then as you get older, you say, I wonder if they sell those jeans in a store that's closer to us, and might look into it. And then as you get even older, it's, oh, who needs them in the first place? I'm not going to be bothered to travel more than 5 miles from my house. And that happens with everything, though. Your comfort zone shrinks.
Yeah.
If you actually look at your habits, you tend to go much further afield, um, for your leisure things. A lot of people will move into big cities because they want the theater and the arts, and you don't get that in the smaller towns. And then, when somebody says to me, well, if I move to Ottawa, it doesn't have the same theater and stuff that Toronto or Montreal does. And I go, seriously, at your age, how often do you go? Oh, that's a good point. I haven't gone to the theater in like 5 years. So,
Yeah.
exactly. If it'll enable you to do more, wonderful. If it's an excuse because you're thinking as you did 15, 20 years ago, but make no difference in your habit changes, that's a whole different conversation. However, when it's fear-based, like this is a double whammy, right?
Yeah.
The older you
Yeah.
get, your comfort zone shrinks and you're more comfortable in your little cocoony
Bubble.
bubble.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you tend to say, oh, at this stage of my career, why should I even go there?
Yeah.
It's those kinds of comments and programs. On the other hand, at this stage of my career, I go like, what the heck? Let's just try it. If it doesn't work, like seriously, I'm towards the end of my career anyway. What's it going to do? And at least I'll try. So there's different ways of looking at things, and I'm always curious to see
Hmm.
what are the stories in the programs that are driving people's choices when it comes to diving into that which is very uncomfortable.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the questions I know you've raised in the past on a prior episode is, what is holding you back? What would it look like if you went forward and it actually was successful? And then, how much, how scary really is it if you really think about it, if you go forward and it's not successful, but what have you learned along the way? And I was thinking of a coaching client that actually just reminded me of this, that she had been in the legal profession for a long time and had an opportunity to start her own firm and was working towards that. But then a connection that, she had been obviously not looking for, but sort of popped up. But I'm the reason that she looks at every person that shows up in her path now as a new opportunity. Otherwise, she would have just dismissed it. She had a conversation with someone who actually said, "Hey, look, our corporation is looking for in-house counsel, and you'd be an ideal candidate. And would you be interested?" And they had some back and forth conversations, but at the time, she couldn't perceive any other path other than I've worked in a firm and I know the challenges that I deal with there, and I've seen corporations and how they act and respond, and I'm not sure I would excel well in that environment. And when we really got it down to brass tacks, it was a new experience altogether for her to try. And
Yeah.
she just celebrated her biggest promotion yet, where she has been given. I mean, she's had two or three promotions since she started with them, but they recognize her for the skill set and ability. And she was trying to tell herself the story of the environment similar to what she had been through in her prior firm experience, when she was working for big firms, and how how they weren't very kind to her and what her contributions were, and then what she had seen in the corporate world. But the reality was you really don't know, and those were circumstances that were unique in those times and in those particular environments, but you don't know this one until you actually go out and experience it. And she's so grateful she did, because I think she has just blossomed so much in her her personal and her professional confidence, but also just her career path, because she took the chance and she dove in at the deep end. And really what she needed, and this is probably going all the way back to the question you asked me, is you need somebody to nudge you out of that corner of comfort, which is, when you start to get older and you start to be a little bit less likely to roll the dice and take the chance. You need somebody to encourage you to take that chance. That's why a coach or, a good close friend or mentor that will be there for you to say, well, why not? Why don't you try this? What could you, possibly learn from the experience? What do you have to lose if you take the swing at the ball and you miss? No big deal, right? But those things, I think we all don't have a lot of those kinds of encouraging people in our back pocket that are there trying to guide us and direct us. And it's kind of unfortunate because we miss a lot of key opportunities because we get a little bit too scared to even go near the deep end. We stay comfortable in the shallow end of the pool.
I'm always curious when somebody makes a statement like, you would be perfect for this job. If that individual ever turns around or does turn around and asks the question, what makes you think that? Tell me what you're seeing, because I'd like
Yeah,
to see through your eyes.
yeah,
Often we say, oh, we're not a fit for the corporate environment. We're more, firm oriented. It's a totally different world, right? To be in-house counsel. And it would be really interesting to ask that question, to say, what makes you think that? I would love to see how I could contribute, like what you see through your eyes, as to how I could contribute in a way that you see so successful.
yeah,
And they might share data, insight, and perspectives with the individual that they don't see in themselves. And I think that would be an incredibly beneficial conversation to have.
yeah, yeah.
Because
I
usually
agree. I
it's
think,
usually, yeah, more like, this is what we need for the job. This is what, in-house counsel does, but
yeah,
not this is what we see you as in-house counsel accomplishing. It's a very
yeah.
different conversation.
It is. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm curious, when there's probably a member of the audience out there that recognizes now, since we've shined a light on it, that, yeah, I'm probably holding myself back from taking some risks and chances, that opportunities that have come my way, that, either because I've gotten complacent, or I'm a little bit too comfortable. I'm not really willing to ask the deeper, more meaningful questions to determine whether that's really a good fit. So how could you, or what advice would you give if you were to be an individual that catches yourself in that moment where an opportunity is really coming, and you probably by default would just kind of ignore it or sort of brush it off? How would you suggest that they stop and ask those questions? How do they catch themselves to, before they fall into that, that same habit of just, that's not for me, that wouldn't be for me, or, ooh, too scary, I wouldn't even attempt to try that?
For me, it's a yes and conversation, not an either or. Not, you know, I would have to do this, and it's not, up my alley kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'll give you a personal example. I was um, I was contacted by a friend and colleague of mine to do some work in the film arena, and because she knew that this woman would really benefit from me being her coach, and she matches coaches with various groups of people, and she's very good at it. And she says, I think that you're the perfect person to coach her. And but she knows me well enough to add more to it, to say this is why.
Mm-hmm.
And she talked about things in me that would really benefit this one individual. And so we had the introductory conversation, and of course it's the same, like train of thought that a lot of people have.
Yeah.
Well, what do you know about the film industry? Well, pretty much nothing. That's not my field. I was in music well before I went into this field, so I understand the arts and I understand the personality behind it, but not necessarily anything to do with film. And then I stopped myself. I said, I work with the Young Women's Alliance of Directors. That's film. It's a different
Oh, wow.
capacity, though, right? And then she told me what she's looking for. And my response to her, and I'm going to backtrack afterwards. My response to her was, everything you shared with me has absolutely nothing to do with film. It has to do with you as a human being, how you make choices, how you have presence, all of that. She says, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And I'm starting actually this afternoon working with her. It's the same thing when I went into this huge corporation uh, south of the border, and the CEO said to me, "What do you know about nuclear energy?" And he was waiting for me to say nothing because I'm an executive coach, coaching psychologist. And I said, "More than you know." I said, "The biggest medical isotope plant is just about a few hours outside of Ottawa. And they make 90% or whatever medical isotopes, nuclear based, for the world in that little area of Chalk River." And he said, "Oh," I said, "it makes no difference," which really ticked him off. That's it. Like, who cares? You need to know nuclear energy. I need to know people. That's
Yeah.
what I'm here for. He said, "You're right. It's, I don't need to know everything. I need to know what I need to know."
Yeah.
And people think that when they take on a job, or they're presented with an opportunity, they need to know everything there is to know about it. Absolutely not. Certain people need to know, the subject matter. In my field, I don't need to know subject matter. Or you could have a parallel subject matter expertise that'll be a piece of cake for you to absorb what they're doing if you give yourself permission to learn,
Yeah.
and not to,
Yeah.
to know it all, but to be open to learning.
Yep.
And that is more valuable, in my opinion, to companies and corporations than coming in with full expertise, because you will learn with them and be eager to learn and be more present and energetic in the role.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Well, and you said there was a point you wanted to backtrack to?
Yeah, that was the point.
Oh,
The point
okay.
is, you don't need to know everything.
Yep.
It's saying, what do I bring to the table that addresses some of what they're dealing with? And I will be absolutely honest and truthful about what I don't know, and be very honest and truthful as to what my approach will bring to them, which they might not have considered. If they say, "No, we want somebody who has like a gazillion years of experience in this field," wish them well, and say, if you're ever looking for somebody who will bring what I bring to the table, give me a call back.
Yeah.
And that's it.
I
You
love
leave
that.
it where it is. Yeah.
That's great. Well, his first mistake was asking you specifically a question like, "What do you know?" Insert blank anyway, because I would never do that. 'Cause you're a woman that will surprise you every single time. I promise you, with your experience and knowledge. So, I have really, I love this. I think we could probably, continue on this topic, for a while. And we like to keep these episodes short, but we'd love to invite our audience members into the conversation with us. And what did they take from this? How are they dealing with, what was their perception of the quote? How do they deal with fear? Have they fallen into that comfort level where opportunities are flowing to them and they're perhaps maybe avoiding them, or trying their desperate best to stay away from that deep into the pool and dive in? We'd love to hear your thoughts and what you took from this episode, and if you have any questions or any specific areas that you'd like us to expand upon that maybe we didn't get to cover in this episode. So Donna, how could people get involved, not only in this particular episode, but certainly in the overall conversations that are starting to happen because of this great podcast with Inquiring Minds?
Well, of course, you could subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is Inquiring Minds with Donna, Carla, and Steve Harper, which is the name of our Facebook group as well. And that's a place where you could comment. You could see all our past episodes as well. And you could tell us, what is it that you would like us to discuss? How did you take something that you heard us talk about and use it in your own lives? We would really love to hear. Interestingly enough, I had meetings with some of my clients' staff this week, and they all subscribed to our YouTube channel, because they said,
Woohoo!
"Where do we find out more about these questions you keep throwing at us?"
I
"Oh,
love
we'll
it.
subscribe to our YouTube channel." Done.
Yeah.
Like, literally, while we were on the call, done. So, I'll be getting some offline comments as well. So,
That's great.
great conversation starters for get-togethers, for around the dinner table, because our podcasts are short and sweet
Yep.
and to the point. So join us and let us know how we could serve you even more.
Absolutely. Well said. Well, Don, I appreciate this conversation. This topic was an interesting one, as they all are. I greatly appreciate your time, and I just want you to have a fantastic rest of your day. I'm going to go find some opportunities to dive in head first on.
Good. Have a great day. Speak to you soon
You
next
too.
week.
All right.
Okay.
Sounds good.